Oh, yes. This is one of my favorite days. Yes, yes. Tuesday training, live Tuesday training for practitioners. Welcome, welcome. I see you all coming in. This is very exciting. This is very exciting. Welcome. Warm welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. Oh, let's see. We have so many people here. Laura, Nafia, Sharice is back in the house. Stacy, Wendy. So great to see you. Hey, hey, hey. All right, I'm going to put on my gallery view so I can see everybody. Now, if you want to stay off camera, you're welcome to do that. If you want to come on camera and play with me, I love when that happens as well. So please do join. You are being recorded, so if you don't want to be on camera, I get it. You can also interact with me by using the chat. If you want to use the chat feature, if you're not able to be visible on camera, or if you are not able to talk. Sometimes people are doing this in their treatment room in between clients, which I totally get. Either way, I'm happy that you're here, happy to interact with you, happy to pour into you and be inspired by all of your questions. If you are new here, welcome, especially welcome. And I'm going to take a minute to let you know, who am I? Why are you talking to this person? I'm Gina Schatz. I am both a manual and movement practitioner. I have been at this game for 3 decades now. I know you can't tell by my youthful look, but I have been at this game for quite some time, and I really love it. And now I train other practitioners. The reason I do that is because during my tenure clinically, I developed a method, the Schatz method, original for my last name. And the method is a way to support both movement and manual practitioners to get to the source of pain and to eradicate it. So I know that there's some controversy out there, like you can't ever get rid of pain. Pain is a natural resource from the nervous system. Yes, totally get that. It's a natural response and something built into the nervous system. But once it's there to be like asked for some love and attention. And so what I do is go to that question, that raised hand, and then eradicate that. The pain symptoms can be there for some other reason in the future if needed, but we don't want to live with pain, the same kind of pain over and over again. So my method teaches practitioners how to make sure we get to that, get to the root of it and resolve it. And what we do here on Tuesdays is talk about, a piece of functional anatomy or physiology or client work. And I've been loving meeting with you guys this month. I came back after a hiatus because you guys were like, please come back on Tuesdays. And I have to say, there's an extra bonus for me. In addition to all that's already been said, there's an extra bonus for me because where I'm currently living in the Midwest, it tends to get a little gray this time of year. There's not a whole lot of sunshine. There's thick, heavy cloud cover, sometimes so much that even the shine from the sun doesn't show through the clouds. It can just feel really heavy. And of course, this time of year is also very dark. Well, last Tuesday when I was on live with you guys, I had to move my computer camera because the sun was coming into the window, and I was super excited about that. And guess what's happened today? Oh yeah, a week later, I got the sun again. So I feel like you guys are a good omen for me to show up on Tuesdays. So thank you. I feel like we should meet more often so I have more sunshine, but really because I just love talking to you. So thank you for being here. For those of you who've been here many, many times, welcome back. It's so great to see you. I love that you're here gathering more information, strategically thinking about how to solve problems for your clients, because I know you want to resolve pain for them. I know that you really want to do good work, or you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be investing in your time to be here in the middle of a day. To learn more. So thank you for being on the ride with me. Thank you for all the work that you do in the world and for being so conscientious about that. Like you, I share that value system. So I'm so glad that we're all here together. Last week, Sharice, I'm so glad you're here again. We talked about a lot of stuff at the end of last week. We really did. So I want to make sure that if those of you who are here today, if you haven't seen last week's training, please go back. It's in the YouTube channel. Please go back and watch the end of it. Well, watch all of it, but at least watch the end of it, because Sharice and I had lots of juicy conversation about some client work. And I want to just touch a little bit on that today. Nafia, hey, you are thanking us for being here, but without you, we will not be here on this platform. Nafia, you are just so generous. Let me expand this love letter and get all of it. So we must thank you for hosting this. My absolute pleasure. It's a win-win, right? Like I really do feel gratitude for all of you showing up, and knowing that you feel grateful that I am showing up means that we all win. And then look what we're doing for our clients. So it's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for thanking me. It's all just feels like good, all goodness. So last week, Sharice and I spoke, and I do want to come back to you, Sharice, and talk a little bit more today. So I'm, again, as I typically lay out these training Tuesdays, I talk for a good 20, 30 minutes at the beginning about some anatomy or some functional anatomy, you know, whatever's on my mind for today. And then I open it up for all of us to interact, you know, ask me some questions. If you have a client issue going on, or if you have a client question, or you've heard something about anatomy and it didn't quite work for you, or you just want some clarity on something, I'm here for that, right? Like there's no question that's off limits. And one thing that Sharice and I talked about last week, we didn't talk about this specifically, but Sharice, you were asking me questions and talking about sacral stuff. And I went back and listened to the end of it because I wanted to write down your questions because they were so juicy. And I heard us talking about the sacral segments. And I just wanted to offer some clarity on that because I brushed over it super quickly in my response to you last week, because again, that's not what we were talking about. But I just wanted to bring in some clarity on what I'm talking about when I talk sacrum. And it's probably what you're talking about too. And it's just great to know that we're all on the same page. For those of you who've not yet met my assistant, this is Murph. His name is Murphy because I literally do alignment for my clients, and look at how crooked he is. I mean, it's only Murphy's Law that I would end up with a dude like this. And I've had him so long, his legs just kind of hang off, right? So this dude's a mess. So his name's Murph. He's really eager. I will never retire him because he just loves his job of being an assistant. So let me tie his leg back on and then show you a little bit about the sacrum. So let's see. Yeah, look at all this sunlight. It's like a gift. It's like a gift from heaven right now. So let me fold up his arms and just show you the sacrum. I'm going to hold it back a little bit just because if I get too close, the sun, I'm not complaining, but the sun sort of cuts that off. So adjust your eyes here. Here's the sacrum. Let me see if I do. It feels like that's better if I hold it against. Okay, so here's the sacrum, right? The bottom of the spine. And on either side of the sacrum is the ilium, which is technically one whole bone called the innominate, right? It's a bony landmark on this bone, which as a whole is called the innominate or ox coxa. Ox coxa is the modern version. Back when I was in school in the dark ages, before sunlight was in existence, we called them innominates. But either way, it's the hip, not the hip bone, right? Because that's really more talking about the acetabulum and the femur and the hip joint. It's not really a hip bone. It's like the pelvis bone. Right? So there's one on the left and there's one on the right, and there's the sacrum in the middle. And in utero, the sacrum is not one bone. In utero, it's forming and fusing along the way, like a bunch of other bones, actually. Not a bunch, but a couple other bones in the body as well. And I'm not here to teach embryology. I got through the class in school. Thank you. I'm done with that. But I do know enough to know that, you know, and we all do, right? You can even see it, that the sacrum sort of replicates the spine, right? Like even this ridge down the center kind of replicates these spinous processes because at one time it was. But as we are fully formed humans outside of utero, the sacrum is a bone, one. So in last week's talk, when Sharice and I were sharing, and Sharice, you were talking about S1, S2, S3, what I want us to think about, or how I talk, so you think about how you want to think about it, but I hope you think about the way I think about it so I can share with you. S1 is the top of the sacrum, S2 is below that, and S3 would be the remainder of the sacrum as it's below the ilium. Okay, so we're just talking about regions, really. We're talking about regions of the sacrum, not individual bones on the sacrum. So I did have a question that came in after our talk about this, and the sacrum is not 3 different bones. So I really want to make sure we know that because it changes. If you think that the sacrum is 3 bones and you're working on it as if it's 3 bones, then it changes what you do, because everywhere 2 bones meet, that's by definition a joint. And anywhere there's a joint, there's muscles that do the movement. And if you're addressing the muscles, you got to know what they're doing. So it gets kind of complicated if you start thinking that there's movement here and joint action here and what muscle is doing that. It's not. But when we talk about the sacrum, and Sharice, I believe this is what you were referring to, when we talk about S1, yeah, you're nodding. When we talk about S1 and S2, we're talking about what part of the SI joint. So sacrum, ilium, and where they meet, where I can't get my finger in there completely, that's the sacral iliac joint. So high on the joint, midway of the joint, or below the joint, but still relative to the sacrum. So if the sacrum's torqued, for example, it's torqued in its whole. It's not just torqued at the top. It can't be because it's one bone. It's not too different than what we were talking about last week when we were talking about the femur. If the bottom of the femur is posterior in a hyperextended knee, the top of the femur will jut anteriorly because that's the way you can't move one end of the bone without the other end of the bone also moving. So I want us to be really clear about that as we're talking about the sacrum. For those of you who've studied with me for a while, you know that the sacrum is the keystone of the body. And yes, I have heard all of the conversations that suggest otherwise. I actually follow someone on social media who, if I'm not balanced and like super confident in what I know and all that I've experienced in the last few decades, I can be kind of triggered because all of the comments in this practitioner's feed are literally, I feel like this person goes for all the things that they've heard and then tries to kibosh it all just to have a voice, which is fine. But in that feed is usually where I find all the arguments, if you will. And I've heard it all about, not just from that particular feed, but I've heard it all that, oh, the sacrum, it's not where it starts. I have conversations that I explore more fully in my trainings. I get it what C1 and C2 does. I get it what the arches of the feet do. I am all in on that. And my experience clinically for all these years is that when I balance the sacrum, everything else can happen. If I don't, it's a 50-50 chance. So I teach that the sacrum is the keystone for a lot of reasons, which I'm not going to go into right now. I do it in other places, but I really wanted to highlight that because it sounded, I heard it when I played it back. It sounded in my response to you, Sharice, that I was nodding that the sacrum was 3 different segments. So I think about it more like regions, just for clarity on all of that. Okay, so hopefully I've redeemed myself as the sacrum is the keystone and also address that we get to look at the joint and what's happening in joint function. So anything you want to add about that, Sharice, by the way, since that was your conversation, you know, we were in that conversation together. Is there anything you want to bring up about sacral segments?
No, we're on the same page.
Okay, good.
But I do find that when I palpate people and there's a twist in the sacrum, it plays differently. It feels differently, it moves differently, and it's really weird. And it's like the SI joints get a little hypermobile or something on one side or the other when there's a twist. And it really it's really an interesting anomaly to see that, because it one segment will be like really tight, and then it feels like, and it looks like the others are moving almost like a twist it's like a twist. And it's been verified every time they go to a chiropractor.
Wait, are you talking about your own body or you're talking about a client?
I'm talking about more than one client.
Okay. So you're go ahead.
So I think where the mobility comes is that SI joint, even though it's a little, because it doesn't have a lot of mobility, but it has enough where it shows up when you palpate and have them move. I became a zero balancer, and that's when it kind of really lit up for me. So I didn't think it moved at all. But
oh no, it totally moves. It has to move in order for us to go into hip flexion, to bend forward and stand up. It has to move.
Well, other than that, yeah, right. But I never imagined it seeing or witnessing a twist in it.
You mean a torqued sacrum? Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. And do you have tools to address that?
Well, usually I've been addressing it with the zero balancing tools that I've learned. One of the things I've done myself is I went through Anuka chiropractic. Are you familiar with that? So they went ahead and my C1 was all out because I had an auto accident. And it's funny because it did straighten out my spine and my cervical spine, all down my spine from any of the scoliosis that I had that was a trauma event. But it didn't help the sacrum. In fact, it just pronounced more a dysfunction going on down there. So that's what kind of lit me up and started observing this more in other people.
Yes, and Charisse, that is a classic example of why I still hold that the sacrum is the keystone. C1 and C2 is super important, and I can do a lot of magic in my method, and I cannot reach C1 and C2. I can't even palpate to get up in there. So absolutely, that's when you get to refer out. And going to a specialist like you did, I highly recommend if that's what's needed. And it won't hold if the sacrum is not balanced first, because there is a direct connection between the cranium and the sacrum in the body, craniosacral law. That's what we know about that therapy and that technique. So the C1 and C2 is the cranial area. It's literally up underneath the occipital ridge. So there is a relationship between it and the sacrum. Like you said, C1 was adjusted, but then the sacrum almost got worse and it didn't hold, right? Because the sacrum is the keystone, not C1. So I'm saying it's absolutely imperative that C1 and C2 be aligned, and it's not in our scope to be able to do that. We can't reach it. And even if we find a specialist who can do that, it has to be done on top of a balanced sacrum or it won't hold. And that, so thank you for illustrating that. I didn't even tee that up for you. It just kind of came out. So thank you for that. Okay, awesome. So as always, Charisse, I believe that you and I could talk for a long time. We said this last week. I learned that your current work is where I started in the orthopedic world, and I love that. And so I feel like I have a ton of questions for you. Like I want to live vicariously through you again, because it's been a minute since I've worked in a physician's office. Today, though, what I want to share is something slightly different, meaning like not quite on topic of what we just talked about, and it might feel more like a concept. And that's okay, because the concept actually feeds all of the topics that we're talking about. And the seed was planted, I believe, Charisse, when you and I spoke last week. And then I had 2 other conversations this week with other practitioners. And I realized, okay, there's a running theme here. I get to address this. So that's where this came from for today. And what I want to talk about today is muscles. I'm not going to identify muscles. We're not going to do anything like that. I've got other training that we could do that. But I want to talk about this idea that muscles are not the enemy. Muscles are not to be conquered. Muscles are not the problem. And even muscle pain is not the problem. Muscle pain is not the problem. Muscle pain is actually the communication of the body letting you know, I need help over here. So one commonality that I see between movement and manual practitioners, and I'm both, so this is with all respect and love, and I'm calling us out on this. You've heard me say this before if you've been with me for more than 5 minutes. Manual practitioners typically want to release everything. They want to get their elbow in there. They want to get their thumbs in there. They want the next technique that can release something. And the something is a muscle. We're not releasing bones, right? We're manual. Masotherapy is muscle therapy, right? We're releasing muscles typically. That's what we're up to. Not 100%, but that's largely what we want to do. Oh, that's tight. Let me get in there. Let me get in there and knead it until it releases. Oh, that feels uncomfortable. Let me put my hands on there and do something to that muscle, meaning the muscle's the problem, and I'm going to get it to stop doing the thing that it's doing, typically by releasing it or relaxing it. Even sometimes stretching, right? Some manual practitioners are doing a lot of passive stretching. They're doing all the work and their clients are laying passively. And so they're actively stretching a passive client, which means they're doing all the work. Awesome. In stretching, when we think about stretching, what we're wanting to do is stretch it to release it from doing something. So again, we're back to that concept of releasing the muscle. Okay, cool. Movement practitioners, yogis, Pilates, they're all about the stretch. I'm a yoga teacher. I'm not a Pilates teacher, but we're all about the stretch, right? Let's go into a long hold stretch. Now, this is not 100%, right? There's definitely part of yoga where we're working on balance and strength and a lot of it. So again, this is a generalized statement. Massage therapists aren't only releasing, yoga teachers aren't only stretching, but it's often the first thing they think of. I'm going to release the muscle that's problematic. I'm going to stretch the muscle where my clients or my student is feeling tightness. Cool. The problem with that is if we release a muscle from a problem, we haven't figured out what caused the problem to begin with. If the problem that caused that muscle to get contractile tight wasn't addressed, the muscle's just going to tighten back up again. Because the way muscles respond in that type of discomfort often is in function when they're moving. So there's something off in the way they're moving, or there's something off in their alignment that makes the movement difficult. And that's where pain and dysfunction comes in. Totally fine if we want to stretch them and release them, stretch them on a yoga mat, release them with our thumbs or our elbows, but we didn't address the problem that caused the tightness to begin with. And I'm going to say contractile tightness because that matters. Not all tightness is the same. In fact, in my mastery program, we go over in depth all the different types of tightness. There's 4 primary types of tightness, and they're not allowed to say the word tight after a certain period of time in the program because it doesn't give enough information, right? The type of tightness is what gives the information about the muscle to then know what to do about it. And in the 4 types of tightness, only one of them actually responds favorably to being released. 1 out of 4. So that's kind of noted, right? It's like 25% of the time you'll get results by releasing something that you find is tight or stretching something that you find is tight. So just keep that in mind as well. When we release a muscle, if it's contractile tight and it needs to be released, that's cool. We haven't addressed what caused it to be tight in the first place. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2 that I see is once we release it, and let's say we're releasing it because the tight muscle, contractile tight muscle, is pulling a bone out of place, right? So where 2 bones meet, we've said is a joint, and muscles pull on the bones. And if one muscle is contractile tight and it's pulling on a bone, the joint is no longer sound. It's a little off track. Okay, cool. So if we know that we want to release that muscle, and we do, and then the bones are free to do whatever they want to do, what holds the bones in place then? Right? We talked about that last week, Sharice, you and I. Once you release all the muscles that are giving this sacrum a problem, telling the person, I have a problem over here, and the person, the client says, I have symptoms of pain and discomfort, and the massage therapist is like, I found it with my thumbs. That feels really tight. I'm going to release it and get that to untight. I'm going to get that to be not tight anymore. Cool. Well, then what holds the sacrum in place? We haven't addressed that if all we're doing is releasing and stretching. Holding a muscle in place means activating it, means making it work. And with all compassion, so manual practitioners, we're not taught how to do that. That's just not what we're taught to do. Our people are passive on the table like 99% of the time. And we're doing all the work. Even when we're stretching them, we're doing the work and they're laying there, right? So this is not a criticism to massage therapists. This is what comes next. After you're trained and licensed, now what do you need to know, right? Like we tend to put a lot of, I guess blame is the word. We tend to put a lot of blame on our massage therapy schools and our yoga teacher training and our Pilates training. And every single time I talk to a practitioner, privately one-on-one, and I'm like, hey, just tell me honestly, like, how do you feel about that? Every one of them says, I didn't get enough anatomy, or I only learned this, but I didn't learn that. Okay, cool. Got it. Here's what I want us to all just take a deep breath, right? A massage therapy program, whether it's 250 hours in California or 1,000 hours in New York or whatever the new numbers are, that's a wide span of numbers. We know that they're different state to state. It doesn't matter what state you're in. There's no way that in any program we can learn everything we need to know about the body. There's no way. This is an endless topic. We're never going to know it all. So rather than being in the grind about how faulty your training was, just let that go and know that that was a great starting point. Amazing starting point. Same thing for yoga teacher training and Pilates, right? Like 200-hour training is nowhere near enough to know all the anatomy that you need to know to be able to apply it. It's just not possible. And excuse me, in the most recent, very rough draft research that I've done, it's roughly about 10% of a training program, roughly 10% of the hours are on the anatomy. So if a training was 1,000 hours, you get about 10 hours of anatomy, right? Like, or no, okay, clearly math is not my deal. Exposed. I know everything about the body, but math, I gotta double check myself. And you should double check me too if I'm ever doing math with you. If your training is 1,000 hours, it's 100 hours of anatomy. Holy smoke. You think that easy math. Okay, anyway, I'm gonna get off that train. And the same thing goes for yoga, right? Like yoga teacher training programs, 200 hours forever until the last 3 years. It was 20 hours of anatomy. I know that because I taught it for years, since 2007. And I speak fast and I get to the point and I make it applicable and functional and exactly what they need. And it's still not enough, right? And I'm saying that about my own training. Not that my training was lacking, because the number of minutes I needed to get it all out there was not available. So whatever your training was, just take a deep breath and let that go, okay? What we know now, in wherever we're at, is that the body is designed with muscles and bones. Muscles move the bone, it's not the other way around. And the way the muscles move the bone is by contracting and lengthening on opposite sides of the lever system. That's just fact, that's just textbook, right? I just want to pause here, and I've been letting a bunch of people in as I've been talking. I haven't said hello. Welcome, Danielle, Joy, Casey, Robert, you came in as well. Stacy, I don't know if I said hello to you. Paul, welcome. I'm so glad you're all here. So we're just talking about muscles and what we need to know now as both movement and manual practitioners. We don't just want to work on stretching and releasing them. And even if that's what we think we need in that moment to stretch and release them, we still want to figure out how to get them to come back to doing their job. And interestingly enough, I was about to say come back online. And that's one of the comments that other thread I told you about on social media. Muscles don't come online. They don't go offline. I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm also a stickler about the way things are said. A muscle's always going to contract because it's designed and wired to do that. And that system could be interrupted or interfered with for a couple of reasons, because that has to come from the nervous system. The nervous system could not be completely firing to make that happen. There could be even nutritional issues that prevent that from happening. But in the scope that I'm in, it's either function, it's been not working for a while, and the atrophy process begins in 24 hours. Doesn't mean the muscle goes dead after a day of sitting, but it doesn't contract with full fervor after you've been sitting on it for 24 hours and then also not contracting it. Right? So if you're lengthening a muscle in a held position and then you're not contracting it, it's not going to have as much zest as it used to. Most of us don't, right? Muscles have personalities. They don't either. Doesn't mean it died. Doesn't mean it's offline. I get that. But we do want to bring attention to the lever system. Is the muscle that's meant to be contracting doing that? And is the muscle that's meant to be lengthening doing that? If not, there's an interruption in the function. That's another reason why things might not work. If the function is awry or the alignment is awry, muscles can't completely contract to their full extent. It's not, from a physics perspective, it's not possible, right? And we've talked about that in other trainings. So what I want to share with us today about muscles is whether you're a movement or a manual practitioner, the body is designed to move. Even if the work that we're doing is with clients who are passive, the body is designed to move, and we've got to even consider what was the movement that caused this problem, or what movement isn't occurring that is the problem, and how do I intercept that? And the same thing goes for yoga teachers and Pilates and any movement practitioner. Yes, the body's designed to move. You're like, I know, tell me something more obvious, Gina. Great. So the body is designed to move, and in order for it to move well, it must be in alignment. So not only in postural alignment, but also structural alignment inside the body, like you were saying, Charisse, like feeling around and palpating along the SI joints right and left. You feel a discrepancy right and left. Unless we're manual practitioners, we're not picking that up. That's not something that you see with your eyes. What we feel with our hands as manual practitioners is not translatable 100% of the time with our eyes. My visual assessment skills are gangbusters, and I don't see things that I feel all the time. They're just different skills. So I want us to all meet in the middle on this. And if manual practitioners could consider, not everything needs to be released, and that we've got to understand how the body moves. And in order to do that, we've got to know muscle anatomy, not just where they originate and insert, but what they do when they're moving, and what they do when they're not moving well. Right? We got to know how they're designed first to be able to recognize there's a discrepancy, and then where do we take them? And that's part of our skill set, right? It's what we train for years after we've graduated. And for yogis, not everything needs to be stretched. Technically speaking, in order for a muscle to stretch, it's got to be a response to a different muscle contracting. So unless you're also knowing what muscle contracts, you're not actually effectively stretching anyway. We want to know that. And if you're noticing something off in someone's movement, alignment-wise or function-wise, just continuing on is actually not doing them a service. It's doing them a disservice because we're perpetuating the functional discrepancy. We're adding dysfunctional movement inside of joint structures that are meant to be neutral when they move. There's nothing off on the way we're designed. The way our body was put together is flawless. So we don't need to be tinkering with anything, including the way it's designed to move. So we need to know, how is the body designed? How is it designed to move? And am I instructing that as a movement practitioner? Which means I'm instructing contraction, because contraction is the action. That's how the body moves. In order to do that, I got to know the muscles. So both sides, movement and manual practitioners, I want us to meet in this middle place of alignment matters, structural alignment matters, meaning alignment like what you see me doing in my sitting posture and in my patterns and my habits. Structural alignment matters, which is what we feel with our fingers when we're measuring and palpating. Function also matters, and the muscles that do them are really important to know. And I would say, based on all the years that I've been training practitioners, that in both camps, manual and movement, we don't really have enough understanding about the way muscles move. We either know the muscles, the origin and insertion, or we know movement. We don't know the muscle that does it. And this is not throwing shade. I'm in both camps. I get it. I know how much training we had. And now we get to have more. Because if you're looking to resolve pain problems and discomfort, and you're looking to have your results last for more than 4 days, which is typically how long a sports massage therapist or a massage therapist who's doing orthopedic work, typically the work that we're doing lasts about 4 days and our clients come back with the same thing. And I know, Charisse, you said that last week, I want it to hold because they're coming back to me a month later with the same thing again. And like, I want to do better for them. Right. In order to do that, we got to know how the body is designed, what's doing the work, what's in trouble, and then how to get it back to the way it's designed. And in order to do that, we've got to know function. We've got to know muscles in function. All right, so I'm going to pause here because we've had a couple more people join in, which I'm super happy about. Let me just scroll back through my list. Ilan, I believe is how I pronounced your name. If I've got that correct, awesome. If not, please correct me because it matters to me that I say your name correctly. Robert, also welcome. You came in. So great to see you all. Okay. And if I missed anybody, I hope not. But if I missed anybody, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. All right. So the last thing I want to say about all this, so interesting. When I bring up these conversations about, what we don't know, a couple things will happen. And I can't see all of you. So like Charisse, I love that you're on camera and your bright smile lets me know that you're here for it, which is great. I can't see all of you though. And when I have spent time one-on-one with practitioners, or even in a masterclass situation where everybody is on camera and I'm talking with you, oftentimes there'll be this moment where everybody looks a little bit like, oh, and that wash of, oh my gosh, I'm just now being faced with everything I don't know. And Gina already said, don't blame my school, which means I just don't know. And that's actually a great place to be. It's a great place to be. In fact, if you're honest with yourself, that's why you're here today, because you thought you'd learn something that you didn't know. So that's a good place to be, to stay in that openness and that place of curiosity and commitment to learning everything and not just sticking with what you already currently know, which is probably amazing. And there's more to know. Again, endless topic. There's no one on the planet who knows everything there is to know about the body. We're all here to learn. And if you've chosen the body as your muse, it's a lifetime path. It is for me as well. I'm learning every day something new about the body. So rather than having that, go ahead, Charisse, what's up?
Well, I know I've only been practicing a couple of years, but I have this huge thirst of curiosity and wanting to learn. And it seems like the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know.
Totally normal. It's totally normal. And I love that. So how many years have you been in practice, Charisse? You said just a couple.
2.
2 years, come on. You speak as if you've been in practice a lot longer. So you're doing amazing. Just know that out of the gate. You're doing amazing. And I love your commitment to what you're doing, right? The work that you're doing is not easy, meaning, and not that any of us has it harder than others, but like doing orthopedic corrective work requires a lot of you, right? There's, when it's been a long time since I've done relaxation massage. And even when I did it, it was more neuromuscular and I was, causing change and affecting change. And even with that, it was rhythmic enough and consistent enough client to client that it felt meditative, right? It was a lot easier in my mind space to just be when I was doing that, as long as I had my sequence memorized and I was present and could pay attention to what I was perceiving with my hands, it was easier, right? There's nothing easy about standing hovered over a table. Don't get me wrong. I'm not classifying any one of us as superior to the other. We're all needed for all the work that we do. What I'm suggesting for you, Cherise, specifically, is that when you're doing orthopedic work, there's no two clients that are alike. Their pain and discomfort is as unique as the person. So you've got to constantly be inventing and on your toes. There's no reprieve for you in the day. And that's what I meant by, more complicated, not as easy. So the way you're speaking and what just in the limited amount of exposure I've had to you, Cherise, it sounds like you're doing great. And I love that you're here to learn more, because there's always more, especially if you want the results that you're looking for. So now it actually gives me a little bit of context, Cherise, when I was, like I said, I was looking back at the end of last week's video to hear what I had said so I could correct it today if needed. And I was pouring into you and I was like, okay, that was 12 minutes of a lot of talking. How was that? And I saw you just like pause for just a second. Now I get it, because it was new. It's not like you've been at it for 14 years, which is how you present. So thank you for giving me that context. I will speak more slowly going forward. And again, there's always the replay. So there's more to know. There's always more for all of us to know. And rather than having that, oh shit, I am less than or a fraud or any of that silly conversation that the ego wants to do, just let that go. The ego is going to take you out of the game because it doesn't want you to get into trouble. But keeping you held back by thinking it's protecting you from being in trouble is just keeping you held back. So we want to stay open. We want to be curious. We want to lean in, right? And this is especially useful for yoga teachers, because yoga teachers tend to, more often than massage therapists, but all practitioners are suspect at a certain point. Yoga teachers tend to repeat what they've heard because the person who said it was someone that they trusted, or they spoke with conviction or confidence. And yoga teachers, like all of us, want to know. So they repeat things. And my question always, again, I'm a trainer. I'm here to train all of you to be excellent. My role in that is when I hear a practitioner say something, I ask them based on what? I want you to walk me through what you know about anatomy so that I know that what you said makes sense to you strategically, so that you can troubleshoot for someone when they come to you with pain or discomfort. I'm sure all of you here work with people who are working with pain or discomfort or dysfunction. That's typically who follows me, because that's what I do. And so if that's really your mission, is to resolve pain for folks, you've got to be able to strategically think in the moment with them, because their pain is going to be as unique to them as they are unique on the planet. It's not copy and paste person to person. So if you're repeating things copy and paste, that means you're not understanding them fully, which means I'm concerned about your ability to solve the problem for your person, which is what you said was your mission. So that's why I challenge us to, what do you know? What do you know? Not in an arrogant way. What do you know? And learn more. The more you know, that's where confidence comes from. Confidence is built from competence, which is knowledge and practice. The more you know, and the more you practice what you know and have results from what you practiced, that's where your confidence comes from. It doesn't come from memorizing things to say.
Right.
Yeah. All right. And I think I'm done with my soapbox for today. So Cherise, thanks for interacting with me today and bringing so much juice. Do you have any questions or Paul, I see that you're here on video, and anyone else who's here, who's just listening in and not on video or not on mic, you can also ask your questions in the chat. Any question is open for discussion. So any question you have on something I've said today, something you heard in a previous training, something you heard from a different trainer, or any client question that you have. I will also say, as always, there's no way for me to give you a treatment plan for a client. That's unethical, probably illegal, and I'm not going to do it. It also doesn't teach you how to think through the problem, but I will troubleshoot with you on a specific client question if you have it, and lead you to where I would be looking if that would support you. So anyone here, if you have any questions, the table's open for questions. Sharice, do you have any questions brewing today?
The only question I have is trying to find out how to get into your master class or find a link to the master class.
Oh,
I'm not getting your newsletters for some reason.
Oh, I'm sad about that. Okay, wait, let me make it
too.
Yeah, I know, right? Okay, let me make a note. Sharice, did you get notification here? How did you find me here today?
Because I got the notification to my email. So some things come through and some things don't.
I see. Okay, so you registered for the training and then you got the Zoom reminder, the Zoom link reminder, and
Yes.
that's how okay. So I will double check to make sure that your email is in our newsletter queue so that you get that. And if I see, sometimes I can tell if you've had something sent and not opened. I'll forward it again if I see that there's something not there. So we'll get you caught up, no problem. Tell me, which masterclass are you referring to? I'd love to answer it for you. I love that you want more training.
How many do you have?
Oh my heavens, my love. So, I have a lot. So I have an online academy where you can self-study your way through all of your CEs, and there's a lot of them. And I'm a little bit hesitant to share that link, and I'll tell you why. Currently, I also have an anatomy advocacy team inside our community. And those practitioners, they're all movement and manual practitioners. And they've been through my year-long mastery practitioner training program, and they know what it was like before they knew, and then once they learned it and what the struggles were, and now they know how different their life and their work is and their practice. And so they are volunteers on this advocacy team, and they reach out to practitioners. They're like, hey, what do you want next? How can I support you? So that the online thing can be a little dry. We're people after all. Like, that's why we work with people. And here's what happened. So we have this landing page with all of the courses in the academy available. And the advocates were sharing that page, and folks were just getting overwhelmed. It was like, paralyzed by choice. So I'm a little reluctant to share it with you, Sharice, without that, at least without the buffer ahead of time. But I'll tell you more about it. And then if you want links, I will happily share the links with you. So I have a ton of a la carte, we'll call them, courses for CEs inside the academy. Everything from functional anatomy to muscles and movement to anatomy and physiology and applications of all of that, everything in between. Lots of individual courses. Then we also have live courses taught throughout the year. And just before we wrap up today, I'll share with you a little bit about what's coming up in Q1 for 2023. I love teaching live. It's literally my favorite. This like lights me up. And then we also have the year-long mastery practitioner training program, which is more than 300 hours, and it's a year-long commitment. And everybody signs up at the same time, and your pod moves through that material through the 12-month track with me, and we implement right away with client work, etc. So that's a bigger commitment, and I wasn't sure if that's what you meant when you said masterclass or not. So that's why I was asking you for some more clarity, and you wanted clarity from me. How is this going? Is it becoming more clear or more convoluted as we go?
Well, it's a little more than what I expected. I just thought you had like, I think last one we talked about a mastery class, and I think it was in function and movement or something.
Yeah, so I taught that class last year, and it was a functional anatomy masterclass. It was the one I'm thinking now, I know which one you're asking about specifically. The one where we talked about the formula, alignment, strength, function.
Correct.
Yeah, that's the functional anatomy masterclass. And I believe it's just a couple hours. I think it's a 2-hour masterclass. It might be a 3-hour masterclass, and it's probably around $47. You can do
Well,
it.
I'm
Go ahead.
looking more at the at the class than the cost.
You're looking more at what?
I was looking more at the class than the cost. I've literally traveled into different countries where they're holding classes here and there to learn more. They're just,
Love it.
like I said, the more I know, the more I realize I don't know, or the more thirst I have to learn more, or whatever it is, curiosity.
Right. Yeah. So you're looking more for function. You're looking more for how the body moves. Is that what you're?
I'm looking how to get to the root of how to help people the best. And I already have quite a following. I am booked 2 months out solid. I have an extensive cancellation list. I think that points that I'm on the right track, but I still need to know more.
Right.
Because every body that comes in is totally different than the previous body.
Exactly. Exactly. So know more about what, Sharice? Help them more with what?
To help them to hold and not continue having the same pain over again. They'll go, I see people who, well, the doctor told me I have arthritis. I give them a treatment. It's like, well, they're totally functioning and it's not arthritis, but it's not sticking.
Okay. So what comes to mind for me is the reason why what you're doing isn't sticking can often be one of a couple things. One, and we talked about this last week. It's a good reminder. One is function. How they're moving is creating the dysfunction. So you want to be able to check what they're doing after they leave you or before they come, and give them tools on how to update that if that's what's needed. Another reason it could not be holding is because you're not bringing in muscle contraction into the formula that you're working on. Remember, we said at the beginning, if you're just releasing everything, what's holding the bones in place? And especially if you're working with compensatory tightness or any compensatory patterns in the body, the tightness that you feel is on purpose because there's been a problem, an interruption in the program. And if you take that away, there's no solution. It's there for a purpose. You gotta, it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever had a puppy, they say, you know, when the puppy's chewing your shoe, don't just take the shoe away. The dog wants to chew. Take the shoe away and hand them a replacement. So if you take away that tightness for that muscle that's wanting to be stronger, you got to give it some other form of tightness. I'm pointing at you with Murph's foot. And the third thing that may be in play with you about why things aren't holding is their mobility, their constitutional mobility. So if you're navigating hypermobile constitutions, they require a very different treatment plan than normal range mobility or hypomobility. And so there's, I think, 4 courses that I offer, all functional movement, because again, this is all in the same body of work here. There's 4 courses where I train you how to walk through a mobility test. It's very quick for you to do with your client. It takes less than 3 minutes. So it's worth it to know what type of constitution they have, because it should inform your treatment plan with them. And if they have a hypermobile constitution, it's not going to hold. It's just not. That's just the basis of that constitution. And the other constitutions would require more functional patterning. So those are the 3 reasons that I know off the top of my head that would be preventing your amazing work from holding with your clients. And those are 3 different approaches. So yeah, so mobility constitution, functional movement, and also knowing muscles and what's supposed to be contracting. That's the place I would lead you.
Okay, I totally agree. I'm kind of down that road. I work with the bones too. I don't only work with the muscles, I do work with the bones.
What do you do with bones?
Check their movement, find out where their restrictions are. And a lot of times, if there's something going on with the knee, I end up doing the whole segment from the hips down. Because if there's something going on with the knee, it's probably going on in the hip, and it's probably going on in the ankle and the foot. And
that's so true. Right. Yeah. So you know how to look in the body, and that's amazing. And it's cool that you do work with bones. And I'll just emphasize, bones don't move by themselves.
Right.
the muscles move them. So if you know that a bone's not moving correctly, there's a muscle responsible for that.
Right.
Until we address that muscle and get it to move the way it's designed to, the bone will continually be out of place. That's just the nature of it.
Well, and
So-
many times I find when I get proper function reset into the bone, a lot of times a lot of the muscles will release. And then I got to find the ones that aren't releasing or not, that should be in their natural or neutral state.
Yeah, so what you're talking about is alignment of the joints, not
Yes.
releasing bones, because you can't release them. They're
Well, yeah, I'd get them into proper alignment. That'd be correct
Yep.
terminology. Yes.
And and that's back to that formula, which is no wonder that masterclass piqued your interest, because it's alignment of the bony structures, bony landmarks first, then strength, then functional movement. Yeah, awesome. Sharice, I will send you. I'll send you an email. I know you're not getting the email, so I'm going to go and look after we wrap up today, and I'll send you an email. And if you would like me to walk you through which one of those courses would be the absolute thing that would light you up the most, I'm happy to walk through that with you before you make your choice.
Okay.
And I can also send you the links to them so you could look at them on your own.
Great. Thanks.
This is going to be exciting for you. You're going to have a whole new program for your people. I can't wait.
Oh, I can't either.
And then you get to come back and share all your wins with me so that I can hear what you created for them.
Okay.
All right. Okay, cool. Hey, Robert, it's good to see you. You came on camera.
Yes, good to see you. Good to see Sharice and all the other names. I just want to tell Sharice, whatever you're doing is fantastic. To have the clientele built up to where it is after 2 years, I just want to say bravo. Good job.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Robert. Yes, we celebrate you, Sharice, for real.
I've been at this for 30 years, Sharice, and I'm still a feel-good relaxation character. And I appreciate what you said, Gina, but I was curious, what motivated you to move over to the orthopedic side? And I'm really delighted to be here today.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I'm delighted to have you. So your question is what turned me from relaxation to orthopedic work?
Yes.
That's a good question. I feel like it was in me from the beginning, if I'm honest, Robert. I'll tell you a fascinating story. When I was still in massage therapy school, so this is what I mean by I think it was in me from the beginning, and the rest of it's just detail. But at the very beginning, when I was still in massage therapy school and I hadn't finished my undergraduate degree, I was just in the midst of that. My undergraduate degree is also in physical science. So I've always been madly in love with the body and fascinated and open and curious. And when I was in massage therapy school specifically, I was getting both degrees overlapping for a minute there. I was sitting in the student lounge in the massage therapy school, and the other students there were talking about people watching. And I've been at it a while, so I was young and I wasn't quite sure, why do you go do that? And they were talking about, yeah, it was fascinating this weekend. I went people watching and I was overhearing it. And I thought, oh, I'm going to go do that. And I went to the mall back in the day when there were malls. And I was sitting in the food court, which was near the entrance to the mall. And I was just sitting there and I was watching people walk. And I could see the discrepancies in how they were walking. And I wasn't a movement person. I mean, I was a dancer already, but I hadn't become a movement practitioner yet. And I was watching these people move with discrepancies. And what I was doing was timing myself. By the time they walked in the door to the time they passed my table at the food court, I was timing myself to be able to pick up what it was. Was it a left knee? Was it a right ankle? Was it this? Was it that? And I was like thoroughly entertained, like wildly like lit up. And I went back to school, and the next time we're all sitting in the student lounge, I said, hey, you guys, so I did the people watching thing, and it was fascinating. How quickly could you identify knees or ankles? And they all looked at me and looked at each other like, what? Knees or ankles? And I said, yeah, I mean, like when you were watching people, like were you watching gait? Were you watching like how they move the chair? Like what were you watching? And they said, labels, purses, fur coats. And I immediately like got filled with like embarrassment, like, oh my God, I don't even know what the heck I'm talking about. And that's when I knew. That's when I knew, because I could care less what someone was wearing. And I like good clothes, don't get me wrong, but that's not what lights me up. What lit me up was just automatically assuming that I was to be watching people move through the world, and that what that meant for me and how I could interface with them in a way that would improve that for them. So I really think it was in me from the beginning.
Yes, that's a great story. And with regard to clothing, I noticed right away your beautiful, huge sweater. And when you said Midwest, so I'm in Texas right now, Dallas Fort Worth area, and it is cold, and it's going to get into the single digits in a Friday. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it'll be in the 20s and single digits at night. But I'm from Delavan, Wisconsin, which is near Lake Geneva. Some people know Lake Geneva, between Madison and Milwaukee, 10 miles from the Illinois border. So when you said Midwest, it's like, okay, where are you? What state, what city are you in?
Yeah, right now I'm in Cleveland. I've been in Cleveland, I've been in New York, I've been in LA, I've spent some time in Florida. But right now it's Cleveland. And yeah, so hence.
Love your sweater. Love your sweater.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Robert, do you have any other questions for me today?
I'd love to find out what's wrong with my left shoulder. So I've been to two, but I mean, I don't know that you're here for that. And you have a lot of other people here that may want to ask a question, but I've been to two orthopedic doctors, and they both said that the x-ray showed a lot of arthritis. The first gentleman's in his 60s and he's not surgery happy. So he said, you're a ways away from any kind of replacement. The second one said, no, you're a candidate. I would mark you as a candidate for a replacement, shoulder replacement. But my rotator cuff, according to the MRI, has got some partial tears, but the second guy said, your rotator cuff muscles are fine. I'm supposed to visit the second orthopedic doctor today because I want to ask him why he said I wasn't a candidate, which I'm not going to run off to that. But I feel like my bicipital tendon is rolling out of the groove and back at times, because even after a steroid injection, which I had 2 weeks ago in the infraspinatus, it took care of basically the inner, inside of the joint where the arthritis is. But when I give massage, and I still do, it can impinge and it can be a problem at times. The front part of the shoulder. I was disappointed because I thought that irritation would go away with the shot, but it didn't. So, I don't know. I'll come see you.
Please, I will happily support you in any way I can. I do work remotely. Of course, I can't do manual work remotely, but I've done structural, functional corrective stuff remotely. It sounds difficult, Robert. You need your shoulders for the work that you do. And here's my invitation to you. I love that you're getting second opinions from two different people. I don't love that they're telling you two different things. It's kind of how it rolls in the Western medical world. But I love that you're covering all your bases, crossing your T's and dotting your I's. And my invitation to you is go get thoroughly your questions answered by them and make sure that you have clarity on what is going on. And then come back to me and tell me what that all is, and we can potentially devise a plan for you. My experience with arthritis and bicipital tendons is that it's alignment and function based. And if that's all that it is, if your doctors come back and they're like, basically, I can't find anything. I'm looking and I'm trying to make up something and I can't really find anything. That's the best news that you can get. I know it doesn't solve your pain right away, but it means that the pain is solvable. And that's why it's the best news that you can get. It's just not solvable with surgery. And that's why they won't be able to find it. But we can find it together.
Sure. And I know I can adjust my diet with regard to arthritis.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do that immediately, because if you already know that you have arthritis, that means that it's your body's way of saying that your diet's been off, and you already know that because that's why you brought it up. So that's all within your control. Go ahead and take care of that. Get all your information from your doctors and then come back and tell me what they say, and we'll come up with a plan together.
Thank you. Blessings. Okay. Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Blessings to you too. Merry Christmas to you. I'm so glad to have spent another hour with all of you. Thank you so much for being here and for all of your insightful questions and your leaning in and curiosity. Just as a reminder, we're not going to meet next Tuesday. Normally I would, even though it's the last week of the year, but I'm having a procedure of my own, so I won't be available to be here next Tuesday. So I figured it's an okay time for us all to take a break. We will be back though in January on Tuesdays, every Tuesday. At the beginning of January, you'll get your monthly newsletter from me of all the happenings that are going on. And if you're not getting emails, please let us know. We'll definitely fix that. Charisse, you're on my radar for that. In addition to the weekly live practitioner trainings, I'm also putting together a few master classes. So at the beginning of the year, I always announce that we have lots of extra training that comes up throughout the year, usually about once a quarter. And I just had a meeting yesterday, and there is a fantastic masterclass being brewed and coming to fruition as we speak. So I will let you know as soon as we have dates and confirmation on that. And in the meantime, I will see you 2 weeks from today, same time, same channel. Happy whatever it is that you celebrate. May your heart be filled with joy and peace, and blessings to you for the new year. And I will see you in